Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Mashin Sentai Kiramager Episode 8, the official debut of King Express. And I thought it was another strong, if not predictable episode. Like 95% of the episode pretty much went the way you would think in terms of how everything was set up last week in the debut and stuff, except for one small detail which I'll get to. But basically, last week we had left off with Juru was exhausted and they were fighting Jokey, Garza's mech, the Dino mech, and the monster of the week, and he was exhausted from being around Ragged. The mecha was on the ropes, but then he saw a vision of King Express. And something I didn't pick up on last week, and if it was supposed to be shown last week, but only Garza and Juru can see it because they have like the inspirational sparkling powers. That sounds like I'm making that up, but you know what I mean for the show if you're watching it. If for some reason you're just watching a random video, that's like a real thing, inspirational sparkling powers. But anyway, only they can see it, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. And basically everyone discovers that, they ran Juru into the ground last week, and my only problem with that storyline was I liked the idea that they wanted to help him, and I ultimately don't like the resolution of like, oh, you don't need our help, you're fine on our own. Because I like the idea of them helping him become better at like general combat. I wanted it to see more of be a calibration of like, yeah, let's help you, but actually let the schedule breathe a little bit so you have plenty of time to, do your own thing, but maybe a little more training. And it ended up being kind of exactly what I thought, which was like, oh, well, you don't need our help, your Toku nonsense will save the world. But the other part I really didn't like was when they have the resolution of like, oh man, we ran him ragged, they didn't realize that that's what happened. Like, those four characters are supposed to be sort of somewhat intelligent, at least some of them, and they're like the less naive, non-rookie Red, and it kind of felt weird to me that none of them would have even thought until Brawhead and the other guy pointed out to them, like, hey, you're the ones that did this because you were training him 24 hours a day. And so that bothered me a little bit that none of them even thought of that. But basically, they come to that resolution that, it was their fault that he ended up so tired. But while he's like in his tired state, he ends up having like a dream vision of the king from Crystalia and starts drawing something with him. And it seems like, I don't know whether it was, like an actual dream that just sparked his inspiration or if somehow his essence is visiting him. But it did result in a real drawing of a warehouse which he needed to go to. And turns out that's the warehouse where they stored the crystal that Bra had traveled to. And Garza's there to destroy it, and he fights him. But then he, I almost said he like Garza, but not Garza, Juru uses his inspiration powers to create the white train part of this, the Machine Express, and so that ends up happening based off of, well, his inspiration and his vision, which was cool. And then he takes it off and Garza follows them, and we get like the battle of the week, and the 5 Rangers defeat the monster after they all apologize for running him ragged. I did like though that it was a little bit of mixed, but I did like that he said he kind of did take them to task for that and said like, yeah, you should have realized you were working me hard, and he didn't say just kidding. Like, he was partly serious, but then he said it ultimately worked out because being in a delirious state of mind caused him to have that vision. But I like at least that he gave him a little bit of, shirt for it, because usually, even I think Yellow said like, I thought you were just gonna say just kidding and everything's fine, because that's usually what they would say, so I thought that was kind of funny. So they have the battle there, and they destroy the monster of the week, and then we get back into the mecha. And then in order to fight the mecha, obviously we combine the new Machine Express with Garza's mecha to create King Express. And I really like that mecha design. I've talked about that in the review for the toy. I've talked about it, when I first talked about the news for the magazine scans of it when we first saw it. But I really like the design of it. I really like the mecha designs in the series thus far. Really good, like, balance between something kind of new and sleek and a bit of a classic look to it. I love the juxtaposition of the colors. It looks so much better in like show form rather than toy form, so I really like it. But something that was interesting is that like he forcibly used it to combine with the King liner, like the evil part of it, and it turns out that it was a failsafe. The white crystal was a failsafe created by the former king in case his train was basically ever taken over. So I thought that was kind of cool. It was also kind of cool how that train did belong to like the former royal family king inspirational power guy, and then like the white part was created by Juru, who's like, you know, this next generation new inspirational guy. So it was kind of like the two of those powers came together to create this mecha. I thought that was pretty cool. But it was interesting because when they did it, Garza was still in the cockpit, and not only was he still in the cockpit, but he could do stuff. Like, he was trying to stop them by activating his fire attack to like shoot the mecha in the face, and then Drew was like, good idea, and he quickly detransforms it and uses the blast to direct it at the monster and redoes it. So I thought that was kind of funny and unexpected. That was the part I was talking about that I wasn't expecting, because everything else kind of went by the numbers of what I expected from last week's episode, but I did not expect the idea of Garza still being in there. Honestly, I didn't even expect it to be under his control anymore. Maybe that'll shift eventually, and we'll see how that goes. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Fire Kaiser, because, you know, it was using the base of Wolzard's mecha, and we only saw that a couple times. I get a feeling we'll be seeing this one at least a little bit more, so I'll be curious to see if, like, the train ever comes completely under their control, or if it's just kind of something like this. But I definitely didn't expect him to stay in the mecha, and I thought that was kind of funny. And then, you know, at the end, they kind of do a spin on Juru's actually training them in drawing, and it's kind of a funny, nice resolution. And Garza is like overflowing with hate after all this happening. I mean, Garza is really a relatable villain. He hates Toku nonsense too. Like, it was really funny during the scene when he was talking to Juru outside of the warehouse, and Juru said a similar quote to his dad, that his brother said, and he's like, my brother used to say the same Toku nonsense, I hate it. I'm like, I agree, I hate Toku nonsense too. You're a relatable villain, Garza. But this episode was very solid. I thought it was a good debut for the mecha. I liked that it wasn't just a very quick debut, it was basically a two-parter, and then we still have some stuff left over to see whether we actually have the train fully under our control or not. I think it did some good stuff for Garza as a villain. And a little bit stuff with Juru too, in terms of his inspirational powers and stuff like that. I'm really curious if there's ever going to be more to that. I get a feeling it's ultimately just going to be he's like an Earthling that happens to have these same powers and of Toku nonsense, but I'm kind of hoping there's a little bit more to it, like maybe he has ties to Crystallia somehow. During the episode I was almost thinking, is he a reincarnation? But that would be impossible because Juru was alive at the same time as the king, as like a 17-year-old or however old he is, so unless like a part of his spirit transferred him. But I hope there's more to it, I guess is my point for that, rather than it just being like, oh no, you just have Toku nonsense just like he did, which I think that's probably what it'll end up being, but they keep drawing attention to it, so I'm hoping that there's a little bit more to it that could be possibly interesting. But overall, solid episode. I would give this week an 8. Kiramager has been on a really nice streak so far of good episodes, so let's hope that continues. What did you guys think of the episode? Did you enjoy it? Do you enjoy King Express as a mecha? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.